Welcome to Season 3, Episode 14 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak life, encouragement, and truth into the minds and hearts of educators and get you energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm going to share some thoughts on how to deliver bad, difficult, or just plain sensitive news to parents in a conference. Visit truthforteachers.com to get the transcript, links to recommended resources, and share your thoughts on the show. So today we're talking about the conversation that we all dread. Telling a parent that their child is A, failing a subject, B, needs to be tested for a disability, C, doesn't have any friends, or worst of all, D, all of the above. Your stomach is twisting and turning just thinking about having to confront the parent. So what do you do? Here are 10 tips to help you share bad news with a student's parent and get the best possible outcome. Start by choosing the time and place carefully so you're both in the right mindset. If you think that a parent might be confrontational or argumentative, arrange to have the conference in the school office or some other location where you have witnesses or at least other school personnel nearby. In fact, I held most of my parent conferences in the office for safety reasons, especially after contracted hours. If you think the conference might be overly lengthy, plan it for before school instead of after, so that way there's a set ending time. In general, though, I think it's better to schedule the conference for a place and time when you're both comfortable, and make sure it's a time when neither one of you is going to be rushed. Don't compound your nerves by scheduling the meeting right before your principal observes you, or right when you're about to head to the doctor's office to discuss test results. Be sensitive to these issues, and be sensitive to them with parents too. Offer them several different times and choices that they can meet. Most importantly, leave some margin time before and after the conference so that you're not forced to jump straight to the bad news right away or wrap up hastily while the parent is sitting there in tears. A second tip is to make sure that you're not getting down to business right away. Try to get comfortable with one another first. Give parents a warm smile when you first make eye contact, and make small talk while they're getting settled at the table. Try to share a funny story about something that happened in class and break the ice a little bit. Remind yourself that this is just a conversation between two adults who are equals. Try to be relaxed and help the parent relax so that she or he isn't defensive. I like to start off every conference, but difficult conferences in particular, with an anecdote about something charming or funny or cute that the child has said recently. The more that the anecdote shows that you understand the child's personality and that you appreciate him or her as an individual, the more receptive the parent is going to feel towards whatever you say next. So share something you love about the student right at the beginning of the conference. Prepare what you're going to say ahead of time if needed, and make sure that it helps you convey a genuine interest in and caring toward the student. A fourth strategy is to give the parent a chance to raise his or her concerns first. Many times parents have a pretty good idea about why you requested the conference, and letting them bring up the elephant in the room allows you to hear the family's take before sharing your side. Simply say, "I'm so glad that you came in today. I want to start by asking if you have any concerns that you want to bring up about your child's progress." This leaves the door wide open for the parent to share anything that's on his or her mind. Try to listen without responding and without interrupting until the parent is completely finished. You can then use what the parent said as a springboard for what you need to discuss. Or if the parent's concerns are somewhat different than yours, say, "No problem, we can definitely talk about that today. I'd like to start by addressing blank." So you're not necessarily letting the parent guide the direction of the conversation or the order in which topics are discussed. You're just getting an overview of where the parent's head is at, and you're avoiding a scenario where you're blindsided with a major problem when there's only 2 minutes left in the conference. So let the parent bring up the concerns first, and hopefully they'll lead right into what you want to discuss. Try to focus on only the most important issues rather than a list of everything that's wrong. I started my teaching career at the pre-K level, so I was often the first person to ever tell a parent that their child needed to be tested for developmental delays or other issues. And the first time I had a conference for that purpose, I unfortunately rattled off this long list of benchmarks that the child wasn't meeting. I went into the cognitive, the social, the physical development, and the mom promptly burst into tears. Immediately, I realized what I had done and that I should have focused on just the biggest red flags and gently introduced the idea of the child needing to be tested, and then give the parent some time to process the possibility of her child having delays. A full report on what he could and couldn't do really was not necessary at that point, and it would have been much kinder if I had given the parent a chance to process what I was saying and waited until we had more information and testing done before mentioning the huge range of issues that her son was having. So, lesson learned, if you're meeting with a parent of a child who has multiple behavioral or academic issues, try to focus on just a few of the biggest barriers to learning first. Once you've established a good rapport with the parent and gotten a plan in place to start addressing the major stuff, you can start slowly addressing the other issues together. Make sure that you're being gentle and also factual when you're sharing problems. It's important not to delve too much into your personal opinion and try to share just the objective facts about what you've observed. He's disruptive in class is an opinion, and it can set the parent on edge. Whereas he calls out frequently in class is an observation. It can be documented, it can be verified, and it doesn't cast judgment or place a label on the child. Remember, this is someone's baby that you're talking about. Parents send us the best they have. They're not keeping the good kids at home. Put aside your own frustrations and try to speak the way that you'd like your child's teacher to speak to you. The parent-teacher relationship is just a crucial one, so the conference can't be used as a chance to vent your frustrations with the child. That will backfire on you every time. You also don't want to try to convince parents to see problems your way. If the parent is apprehensive about the information you've shared, it's not your job to change his or her mind. You are responsible for how you deliver the information, not how it's received. Don't expect a parent to enter the conference with one perspective and then leave 15 minutes later with a completely different outlook on his or her child. Instead, give the parent time to think, time to talk to other family members and friends, and then get back with you later on. Very few people can hear upsetting news about their child and then immediately move into productive problem-solving mode. Often a parent's first reaction is denial or anger, and they need time for bad news to sink in. So allow them that and be gracious about it. Try to end your conference by reiterating everything that's going right. Close the conference with a recap of the child's recent successes and key areas of progress, no matter how minor they might be. Make it really clear with not only your words, but also your tone and your attitude that you believe the child can improve and that the school year is going to get better for him or her. Be really explicit about how much you appreciate the parent's time and meeting with you and how grateful you are for the way the parent supports his or her child's education at home. Even if you feel like the parents aren't really doing everything they should, still express that you appreciate their support. And most importantly, state outright that you are on the same team with the family. You are working toward the same goal, which is to do what's best for the child. So reiterate that you're going to keep working until you can agree on what that best looks like, and until you have a solid plan in place for making it happen. You can also try to plan follow-up meetings before the conference ends. And that's especially a good idea if you're worried that you won't be able to get the parent back in for another conference. Try to set the next meeting date before the current conference is over. Just say, I'm going to start implementing the changes that we talked about today. Can we pick a time about a month from now to go over the results? Even if you need to change the day or the time later, this at least plants a seed in the parent's mind that this wasn't a one-time meeting, and that she or he should plan to set aside additional time to talk with you in the future. And it's a great strategy for parents on the opposite end of the spectrum who are hyper involved as well, because it reassures them that they will have a chance to talk about the issues and the interventions again soon. Finally, double up on praise and good news in the coming weeks. The parent is likely to be really sensitive to everything you say and do after a tough conference. So watch the comments that you make on the child's graded work. Pass along as much positive feedback as possible and double up on that encouragement and praise. I'm going to end with a bonus tip here, which is to consider whether the student should actually be the bearer of the bad news. I remember being incredibly anxious about one particular conference because my co-teacher and I were going to have to tell a parent that her child was in danger of being retained. I had no idea how we were going to convey that diplomatically and say that the child was failing because he was essentially being lazy and wasn't putting forth any effort in his work. I mean, how do you say that in a diplomatic, politically correct way, right? So I was really nervous about it, but my co-teacher was like, "What are you nervous about? We're not going to tell the parent that. The child is going to say that." And she sat the student right down at the conference table with us, and she started asking him questions. She just went through a list of questions that kind of made the truth come out on its own. So she said, "How do you think you've been doing in class? What areas do you think need improvement? Why do you think that? How's your homework been going? Can you explain why you haven't been doing it? What about class time? Can you show your mom your notes? I see very few notes here. Would you tell us about what's happening with you during class time? And how is all of this affecting your grades? What do you think will happen if your grades don't improve? What needs to change in order for you to do better? How can your teachers help you be more successful? How can mom and dad help? What is our plan moving forward, starting today, to help you improve?" Now, these are pretty deep questions for an 8-year-old, but he did a remarkable job responding. I remember sitting at that table feeling absolutely astounded that no teacher had to say anything negative about the child to his mother. We didn't criticize, we didn't shame, we didn't tell on him, we didn't nag him. The whole conversation revolved around the child reflecting on his choices and admitting the poor choices to his mom, and then determining what he was going to do with 3 witnesses who were going to hold him to it. We made no accusations. We said nothing that the parent could come back and throw in our faces later or complain to the principal about. Instead, we learned a lot about how the student viewed his school performance and the things that were distracting him and holding him back. We were able to end the conference with a firm plan for improvement that everyone present was fully invested in. So if you're nervous about conveying bad news to parents, think about whether this might be something that you want to involve the student in. And rather than sharing the news yourself, simply ask a series of questions that let the student kind of reveal what's been happening and shed light on what's going on from his or her own perspective. The motivational quote that I'm going to leave you for the week ahead, this week's takeaway truth, is this: the way that you see other people is the way that you treat them. And the way that you treat them is what they become. Remember that relationships are at the heart of everything you do in the classroom. Keep that in the front of your mind during conferences and when conveying bad news. Be empathetic, be objective, and treat parents as the kind of people that you'd like them to be. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the show. Go to thecornerstoneforteachers.com/S3EP14 for Season 3, Episode 14. You can share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for listening and have a fantastic week. You can do this, and remember, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it. Truth for Teachers is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more great podcast recommendations, go to edupodcastnetwork.com. That's edupodcastnetwork.com.